The 49ers have lost 2 games in a row, and it's time to ask a Super Bowl winning coach what they're doing wrong. I'll do that next on Ask Tom Walsh. Good morning. Welcome to Ask Tom Walsh, sponsored by BetUS. That's former Raiders offensive coordinator and Super Bowl champion Tom Walsh. I'm just Grant Cohn. Tom, thanks for coming on the show. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Good morning, Grant.
Good morning. So the Niners, it's Armageddon over here. They've lost 2 games in a row. Oh, my goodness. They're 1-2. They got the Patriots coming to town. Somehow, God forbid, if they lose this game, I don't know what would happen, but they don't need to find out. Tom, what is the biggest issue right now with their defense? That seems to be their biggest problem.
You know, in looking at it, watching them play, and then you start to look at the roster, you look at other contributing factors. You now have a new defensive coordinator in addition to another hire with Brandon Staley. So there's a second mind that's now in the equation. Also, you've got injuries. And then also you've got players who are playing, but they're not playing up to their quote-unquote standard. They're not playing up to their contract. And then the other thing is you've got to look at the scheme a little bit and analyze, what the Niners are doing, what their defensive philosophy is, and also not only the strengths of that defensive scheme, but also the vulnerabilities of that scheme. And I think the combination of all of those factors has contributed to where they are from a defensive perspective. I mean, think what they're giving up over 6 yards a play.
Yes, 6.1 yards per play.
And their third down defense is like next to the atrocious. I think they're 30th in the league with third down conversions. I look at the Steelers, and everyone talks about the Steelers or this, that. Their defense is like giving up only 7 third down conversions out of like 34 or 35 plays in 3 games.
Yeah.
Now that's phenomenal. You'd like to be in the 35, 38 percentile range, but you don't want to be 53 or 54%. And somewhere along the line, I think the coaches have to say, okay, what can we do to add to our packages to give up a change-up look to what we're doing, so we're not always a never ball club. We're always doing this and we're never doing that. Where are my simulated pressures? Where are schemes that are going to force the offense to make an adjustment at the line of scrimmage during the 40-second play clock? Where are my fire zone dog schemes? Where can I make a quarterback on 3rd and 9 or 3rd and 10 have to throw hot into a loaded coverage where I can make the tackle and put the punt return team on the field? I don't know, unless I'm missing the boat, I don't see that. And you've got to have something different, because if you're not getting pressure with 4, then the old theory used to be, if 4 can't get there, I got to send 5. If 5 can't get there, I got to send 6. Well, now, by the same token, we now have simulated pressures where I can send a variety of players, drop other players out, play zone behind it, attack the opponent's protection scheme to force the quarterback to have to bring the ball out. And that's a win, and I can play zone behind it. I don't have to be in zero coverage. I don't have to be bump and run, giving the quarterback an easy throw where you avoid the sack because, bam, he can throw the 9 route. I can play zone behind that, but you've got to. I mean, we talked about some of these packages months ago when they signed Floyd, and the ability to utilize him as a dropper as well as a rusher, and what you can do around him and play different shells on defense and coverages and all that, and take advantage of the looks. Where's the split 6 dog looks where they're playing zone behind it, bringing defensive safeties off the slot, dropping defensive linemen, and playing zone and taking advantage of those concepts? I see none of that.
Yeah, it seems like all the best defensive coordinators in the league these days do a lot of that. 6 guys on the line, and not necessarily rushing all 6, but making the offense figure out, have questions. Like the Vikings did it to the 49ers. The Chiefs did it to the Niners in the Super Bowl. But the Niners, they blitz less than any other team, and they're not generating much pressure. And that was with Javon Hargrave. So it seems like now there's a lot of pressure on Sorensen and Staley to manufacture a pass rush.
Well, the problem is they're not getting it with the four they have now. So they've had 3 weeks of games in which to analyze what they're doing, and they've got to say, okay, what kind of a wrinkle can we add to maybe juice up our packages and to create some indecision for the opponent. But you just can't walk out there every Sunday with the opposition knowing what you're going to do and feeling comfortable that they have zeroed you in and they got you in their crosshairs and they've seen everything you've shown so far and they feel good about it. Each Sunday, I've got to bring something to the game that I haven't shown previously, which can create some doubt and some indecision and maybe give me a slight edge against the opponent. And they don't do that defensively.
You know, they fired Wilkes because he wasn't. Hold on just a second. They fired Wilkes because he wasn't from the Robert Saleh, D'Amico Ryans tree, and they wanted to get back to their roots. But it seemed like with Saleh and D'Amico on third down, they would like actually have interesting pressure concepts. And with Nick Sorensen, it looks very vanilla. I wonder if Brandon Staley can help him.
You know, I have no idea because I know the Chargers were not that good on defense when Staley was there. But, you know, from a defensive perspective, just like on offense, you talk about Saleh, you talk about D'Amico, but they evolve. And where is the Niners defense evolving?
It looks like they took it back to the past. It seems like they're trying to recreate the Pete Carroll style defense. That's where Sorensen was for a long time, along with Saleh. But the Seahawks don't even do that anymore. Like that scheme is out of it's not popular anymore. It's like running Tampa 2 all the time.
Well, the other thing is that the more teams have played defensive schemes, just like offensive schemes over the years, opponents study the tape. They have nothing but time to study film. It's not like they're in college where they got to check a kid going to class or they got to do all recruit and all that stuff. You spend time on football, 17, 18 hours a day, whatever, you know, as long as you got electricity, you know, you can look at tape, you can study, you can come up with schemes, you can analyze what the opponent's doing. You've got a defensive line coaches up there who should be studying the opponent's protection schemes and come up with ways to attack those protection schemes. And it's not just about having a guy be able to teach you how to rush the passer. Who's analyzing the opponent's scheme and determining what New England or the Jets or whomever are doing and how we can attack what they do? It's a week-to-week analysis. It's not the same package that's Xeroxed every week serving the same menu. You know, you just can't do that.
You mentioned the Steelers is sort of the standard for great defense early in the season right now. And I'm sure part of it is good coaching, but I think a lot of it is TJ Watt. He's incredible. And the 49ers are supposed to have their own version of TJ Watt. They pay Nick Bosa like he's that good, but he doesn't seem to have that kind of an impact anymore. What are you seeing from Bosa in particular?
You know, okay, let's say this. The guy's a great pass rusher, okay? And we've talked about that before. You know, to me, it's like, but I see nothing from him in the run game. I see a chaser and a pursuer. Frankly, if I were playing against Bosa, I'd be running at him. Mm-hmm. I would lay the wood on him on first and second down in the run game and make it physical for him. Now, the other thing about it is if I were going against the Niner defense and the way they are right now, I would find a way to have a personnel grouping on offense that I like and have a set of run and play action and drop back pass plays that can go with that group. And I would put them on the field and I'd say, we're staying on the field. Because I noticed the one thing I want is I don't want you up front with the Niners to substitute your guys. You rotate your players. You got guys who play on first and second down. You got guys who play on third down. You got a guy playing on first down, but he comes out on second and third down. I don't want you to substitute. I want you to have to stay on the field with those 11 guys. And I'm going to restrict your substitution. I'm going to be at the line of scrimmage. And I'm not going to run NASCAR on you, you know, in turbo where I'm going to beat the 40-second play clock and clank up the praise. But I'm going to use the play clock to my advantage. I'm going to be at the line of scrimmage. You're not going to substitute. And I'll use the 40-second play clock to my advantage. But I'm going to have my offense ready to go at the line. So if you want to, you're not going to be able to substitute. I'm going to make you play with those 11 guys. And now let's play football. I'm going to challenge you defensively with what you do. And I'm not letting you substitute guys in. I mean, I got 5 offensive linemen that play 65 snaps. If they can be out there for 65 snaps, I want to make you keep your defensive lineman out there for 65 snaps.
Okay, so the defense is taking most of the heat for the 49ers right now. People are talking about the Niners offense like the little engine that could without all their starters out there. They're doing so well. And they have been statistically. I think they're third in the league in yards right now. But they had a lead. The team in the fourth quarter against the Rams, the defense collapsed, but also the offense scored only 3 points. And yet again, Kyle Shanahan has a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter, loses. He's done this 5 times as a head coach. We talked about it last time we spoke, finishing with Kyle Shanahan. What did you see from this collapse?
Well, the thing is, now granted, everyone points to the drop by Bell. They claim, they try to make that as the scapegoat for the loss. But, there were a lot of other plays in that fourth quarter prior to what came up to be the drop, correct?
Mm-hmm.
They get a field goal in the fourth quarter. The other thing is, you think about it, as we've discussed previously, by the time I get into the fourth quarter offensively, my plays have been run. Now, from my perspective as a play caller, I'm thinking of players and players on whom I can rely to make plays for me who have established that pattern during the game. So I think the key thing is when it gets to the fourth quarter and you're trying to close out the game, there are certain players I've got to feature in certain plays, which are the best plays for them to execute. And maybe I've got to repeat some of my best plays, maybe from a different look, different motion, different shift, but I got to come back with the same concept in the fourth quarter because we've had established success utilizing that concept earlier in the game. And if granted, you got a guy, there's certain players to whom I should be able to throw the ball or certain runs I should be able to run. They've got to execute.
It's funny. I'm looking back at the box score. They went to Jawan Jennings so consistently. They had 86 yards in the third quarter. And the fourth quarter comes along, and you figured this is the time for Jawan Jennings to close out this game. He's been the man all day. 3 catches for 20-something yards. Ronnie Bell gets 2 targets. Brandon Ayuk gets 2 targets. So with the game on the line, Kyle Shanahan goes away from the guy with the hot hand. He's trying to trick the other. It seems that when the pressure's really on, he makes decisions that are hard to explain.
Yeah, unfortunately, and you've got to explain to the players, and you tell them ahead of time, okay, guys, if we got to close out the game, I'm going to go to the guys who have been performing the best. I'm not, we're no longer trying to divvy up and ration out touches. Okay, it's like we'll go back to the Michael Jordan era. I always like to laugh about the people talk about, well, too many balls were thrown to this guy, but I'm not going to restrict the touches Michael Jordan gets. If he's performing, he's shooting, he's making points. Hey, you know what? If I got to feed him, I'm going to feed him until his tongue's hanging out. We're going to close out the game. We're going to win the game. I've got to go with my playmaker. So if I give Jennings 5 more targets in the fourth quarter, hey, I've got 900 patterns on that list of sheet that Kyle holds up every day. I got to have my Jennings passes. I got to be able to get him the ball.
Yeah, I mean, he was having one of those games where it felt like, go ahead.
My game planning in the fourth quarter is about players who can deliver for me, not about allocating touches and not about that's gone. We're beyond that. By the fourth quarter, I'm winning the ball game and I'm putting the ball in the hands of the guys who have been performing thus far. We're not rationing out touches for other people for feel good deals. Forget the stat book.
Yeah, it seemed like the only person who could stop Jawan Jennings down the stretch was Kyle Shanahan. I mean, every time he called a play for him, it worked. And down the stretch, he's like, I don't want to do that anymore. I like Ronnie Bell better.
I laugh. I go back to a comment years ago. The only person ever to be able to hold Michael Jordan to under 20 points a game. Do you know who it was?
Dean Smith.
Dean Smith, the head coach at North Carolina, his basketball coach. He was the only guy. The coach was the guy who stopped Jordan from scoring because he didn't let him get the ball.
Right. He's a college coach rationing out touches like it's amateurs.
It's like, oh, well, he's had enough now for the game. Okay, let's go to somebody else. No, I'm sorry. As long as you're on the field, as long as you're playing, hey, if I want to get you the ball, I'm going to get you the ball. I don't care if you got 8 touches in the fourth quarter. We're going to seal the deal. I'm going to go to you to win the game.
Okay, let's take some super chats. Yaz Williams says, could Tom win a Super Bowl with this team?
Oh my goodness. You know, the one thing about which I see now that is a concern is what is Kyle doing psychologically during the week with the players to reinstall the confidence to be able to pick them up? Where's the PMA, what I call the positive mental attitude? I can't be Bill Belichick and scream and yell and throw the projector against the wall and beat these guys up. That doesn't fly. I've got to let them know, okay, we've got to do a better job as coaches. You got to do a better job as players. We got to get people healthy. We've got to come up with a few different items in our menu for defense and for offense. We've got to be better at this. We've got to be better at that. I've got to instill in them the confidence that, we've got something different than what we've been doing the last 3 or 4 weeks. We've got to have some change ups. We've got to, it's like you can't wear the same clothes every day of the week. Okay, come on, let's vary the wardrobe a little bit, give you a different look, give you a different flair. I've got to do the same thing offensively and defensively.
Ramon, thanks for being a member. B. Cruzen says Niners believe that there's no life after Kyle, so they're afraid to fire him. Are they afraid to fire Kyle Shanahan?
That question is probably even beyond Jed York. That goes all the way to Denise.
Correct. Dazza says, Niners are struggling in the red zone. Can the offensive genius really not come up with plays there without Christian McCaffrey?
Well, you could come up with packages. I mean, you've got tight ends, you've got wide receivers, you've got running backs, and you have a run game on which you still have to be able to focus. And as you get into the red zone, whether it's the high red zone from the 25 to the 12 or the low red zone from the 11 down to about the 3 or 4, you've got different defensive schemes that you're going to see. And then you have to have some runs that are what I call field-related specific, predicated upon where you are in the field as opposed to what you're going to see defensively. And we always had a separate packages for the red zone, the high red zone, the low red zone. We had passes to throw that we liked, that we designed and we practiced all the time between the 25 and the 12, and that 12 down to, or the 11 down to the 3. And then if we went to 23 personnel inside the 3, went to our goal line offense, we had some running backs who could score regardless. We used to
Marcus Allen could just jump over things.
Exactly. We used to call it blast jet, Hey, and we had Bo Jackson, and you know what? If they saw a crack, they wouldn't leap. They would just take the crack. So even we called it blast jet, they were going to go up and over the top from a 7.5-yard alignment behind the quarterback. Hey, they'd land 5 yards deep in the end zone.
Okay, let's change the topic a little bit. Brock Purdy is entering an interesting phase of his career. He had nothing but success the first 2 years. He had a lot of talent around him. Now a lot of that talent's hurt, and he's still putting up really good numbers, but he has lost 2 games in a row, and he has committed 3 turnovers in the last 2 games. So it hasn't been perfect. What are you seeing from Brock this season?
The thing about which I noticed from his play is that he's keeping plays alive. He scrambled a lot he put a lot of miles on his shoes trying to avoid pressure. And then he also, I believe, picked up 35, 40 yards scrambling. I like the fact that if I were, working with him, I would by design move the pocket for him. Mm-hmm. Some play action, and instead of bringing him out on nakeds, I would have it where Juice or a second tight end was out there to protect, where now I could run the bootleg fakes or whatever, allow Purdy not to have to throw the ball hot, because now I could utilize some double moves or whatever down the field and be able to take some shots off a misdirection, but protect Purdy on the perimeter so that he can set up and make a throw and not have to throw the ball to a back or a tight end or a wide receiver coming across on a fast flat because he's got a defender closing on his face. And I think the misdirection's good. You get the flow of the defense in one direction, and you can have crossers and people running drags and deep opposites routes to take advantage of it and find some voids in the defense, because the spacing gets all messed up when the quarterback starts to move. And so I would think it's more than just pocket passing. I would like to see him on the move by design more.
It seems like that's one of the things the Vikings are doing really well with Sam Darnold this year. When I watch him, it seems like he rarely is just in the shotgun, surveying the entire field and making decisions like that. It seems like they have him rolling left, rolling right, and giving him half the field and easy reads, and he can execute. He's doing a really good job. It seems like Purdy's built to do that too.
Well, the thing about which concerns me also is where are the yards after catch that the Niners were getting previously? Where's the run after the catch? And, you cannot always be throwing the ball to the receiver who's got his back turned to the defense.
Mm-hmm.
And, also by moving the pocket and the defense having to slide and DBs having to plaster or linebackers having to track crossers or find crossers and redirect after misdirection off of the flow of a run fake. Now I've got a chance to find some voids, whereas I got players running at angles. Now they're a step or two after the catch where they can turn and go up the field and run, as opposed to their back turned to the defense catching a hook route or an out route where then they have to totally redirect themselves. And throw the ball to them when they're on the move, even diagonally or horizontally, to where they can make that one step, plant and turn and get up the field and go.
So are you saying that the 49ers' shocking lack of yards after the catch this season is primarily a function of design?
Well, yeah, you have to be able to throw them the ball in positions and by designing routes that allow them to run within one step of the catch. And, see, that was one great thing about Bill's offense when back to the West Coast package. Bill, now he used to run what he called 22-23 ZN, where it was the old hook pass to Jerry Rice on the strong side for 12 yards or whatever. But he liked to be able to throw the ball to the receivers on the slants, on the skinny post or the bang eights or on angle routes to where they now are working up the field quickly. They're not catching all your balls with your back to the defense. He wanted them to be able to catch and run within one step after the ball being secured. And he was a big believer in that because he knew. Now, think about this. I throw you a 12-yard hook. I get to 12 yards, but I throw you a 12-yard skinny post. You're going to get more yards automatically after the catch because of the angle at where you are. And with your vision, within one step, your head snaps back around. You now have a vision to see where the defense is as you're running. You've got a safety, you've got a corner, you got a linebacker, whatever. You can navigate through that traffic much better than if you catch the ball on a hook pass and you're blind to the defense behind you. And now you've got to whirl around and turn and then now find everybody and restart your motor after you were in a static position making the catch on, say, a hook route, for example.
Well, last year the Niners pass game coordinator was Clint Kubiak. He left, offensive coordinator with the Saints. They were doing well until last week. His replacement seems to be his little brother Clay Kubiak and Mick Lombardi, who was the offensive coordinator with the Raiders under Josh McDaniels and played Little League with me. That doesn't really matter, but it seems like maybe the turnover in the coaching staff has some reason for why the team that usually gets the most yak isn't anymore.
Okay, this will be interesting for you. And Mike Holmgren, great offensive mind, great designer. I remember when he first became the coordinator, when Bill was released and George Seifert became the head coach. The previous year, I think the Niners had played the Bears. Mm-hmm. Bill was the head coach. Bill ran the offense. Bill called the plays. Okay. The next season, if my mind serves me correctly, the opening game was against the Bears and the 49ers. And I went back and I had watched the previous Bears game anyway. And then I'm watching that Monday night ball game. I think it was a Monday night game with Holmgren calling the plays. And I swear to God, 85% of the plays were exactly the same plays in the same situations that Bill had run the year before against the Bears.
That's incredible.
And the success was phenomenal.
That's interesting.
So the thing about it is, you cannot, I hate to say this, so many times as an offensive coordinator or play designer, you overthink everything. You think you've got to come up with the next greatest idea. You've got to try to, be a brainchild and be sometimes that's over. Sometimes you actually coach yourself into a hole because you overload the mindset and you paralyze yourself and you forget about sometimes it's like Sid Gilman had a great comment. He says, football is very simple, easy game. Leave it to a bunch of coaches to F it up. And I think, and that was 1974 when he told me that. And he said, kid, you need to remember that. And sometimes you think back and you go, yeah, it is. Just get the ball to them on the basic stuff. I remember when Jim Plunkett would be a quarterback, and we'd be going through this, running this play, running that play. And he'd say, hey, can we just go back to the basics and let me throw A, B, and C? Sure. And do what they do best, do what they know, and they execute it. I mean, you got these pro athletes, great athletes. Put the ball in their hands. Don't turn it into a Mensa game. Let them just go play football.
Well, Kyle likes turning it into a Mensa game. I want to ask about something else. So the Niners right now, early in the season, is a little bit defined by high-priced veterans, not necessarily living up to their contracts. Brandon Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey, but then you got Juwan Jennings, who's another one of these, Jordan Mason, Brock Purdy, guys who haven't gotten paid, guys who were backups who are stepping up. I want to talk about Jennings in particular. He gets one start. He goes for 175 and 3 touchdowns. He looked incredible, at least in this one game. If you were the play caller here, how would you approach his role in the offense moving forward? Would he go back to being an afterthought who gets on the field on third down sometimes, or are you now looking to feature him? How should the Niners approach Juwan Jennings?
Well, the thing being, now here's the other problem. You gave Ayuk all this money, and you got Debo, and there's only one ball. I hate to say it, and you got 5 guys on the field, all of whom want to touch the ball. You got a tight end in Kittle who's getting big money, and he wants to get the ball. You got wide receivers. Now your running game is a little different. Your passing game's different in the backfield because you don't have McCaffrey. So Mason's not going to be the same guy as McCaffrey in the passing game. So that removes that equation. I can use Mason a little bit different in the passing game as a check down guy rather than a guy I put out there on the flank in the perimeter and motion and shifts and screens and all this, the dodge routes and the choice routes, because that's not Mason. So now, yeah, I can utilize Jennings more, and I've got to come up with a package where I can integrate all of them. You got to mix it up.
It seems like at this point in his career, he's a better wide receiver than Debo Samuel. I mean, should Juwan Jennings go to the bench, or should Debo go to the bench, or should Brandon go to the bench? Or are they making too much money to do that?
Or should Juice go to the bench and you just play with 11 personnel? See, here's the thing. I no disrespect to you, and I've mentioned this. We've talked about this. In fact, was it last year or 2 years ago? You and I discussed the fact before they played the Patriots back in New England, if I'm not mistaken, we talked about the juice factor and that he was not being utilized in the offense. And that if I were Shanahan, when they went back to New England to play, I'd have to get Juice the ball on some runs and on some touches in the passing game and utilize the guy. Otherwise, he's a decoy out there on the field. It's like an iron deer on the lawn in your mother's yard. Hey, it's for decoration, but what does it add to the yard? You know what I mean? And he's not adding anything to the defense. To the offense. I would take him out and go with Mason as the running back, and put in 3 wides and a tight end and go 11 personnel. Now I can get all of those guys on the field at the same time. Put my best 11 players on the field. Now, is Juice better than Jennings?
No.
Thank you. So therefore, I'm going to line up with I'm putting my best 11 on the field. And I'm going to come up with a scheme, a package, runs, play action pass, drop back passes, and all that with those 11 guys on the field.
Now, I know with Juszczyk, having a fullback allows the offense to sort of do more schematically in the run game, and that helps when Christian McCaffrey's out there because they do a lot of different concepts. But with Jordan Mason, it looks like they're essentially running outside zone and inside zone. And what is Juszczyk really adding to the offense?
Other than the shift in motion, disguises, and everything, nothing. And see, the other thing about it is you can run the inside zone, outside zone with 11 personnel. I don't need to be in 21 personnel. I don't need to be in 22 personnel. I can be in 12 personnel. I can be in 11 personnel. I can be in 10 personnel. So I say you put your best 11 on the field.
I mean, Sean McVay and the Rams have been running 11 personnel for a very long time with the same scheme. I mean, it seems like a lot of people run this particular scheme with 3 wide receivers on the field.
Well, my concern is from an offensive perspective, I want my best 11 on the field. I don't want the guy sitting over there next to the Gatorade bucket. I want them on the field. So I'm going to put my best 11 out there. And if it's 11 personnel, it's 11 personnel. Now, you can make substitutions in certain situations if you like something that Juice can bring to the game in terms of productivity. If you want to run, you can run the toss crack scheme with 11 personnel. You don't have to have 21 personnel on the field to do that.
Yeah, Jennings can block. You can block.
Yeah.
Plus, remember now, I go to 11 personnel. That makes you on defense go to a different defensive scheme if you're going to try to match up. And so now you're going to have more DBs on the field, more coverage people on the field. So now you're matching up with my 11. If you stay basic and I have 11, that's a great advantage for me. But now you substitute in, you bring in more midgets for coverage, then now my receivers can block your midgets. So yeah, that's even tit for tat.
This seems like an interesting test for Kyle because a great coach uses the players he has. And like you said, gets the best players on the field. A scheme coach sticks with what he knows and goes with 21 because he feels that's the best way to approach playing football. So he's got 3 really good wide receivers. He really can't put Jawan Jennings back on the bench. See if he figures it out.
Correct. The thing about it is I've got to create my offensive game plan and my packages around my best players. And so I have to adjust to what I have. I got to coach the players I have, and make those adjustments. And especially now with the NFL, with injuries and all that, each week I may not have the same players available. So every week I have to look at, okay, who's healthy, who's going to be ready to go. Now, how can I create packages around those guys who are going to be able to play? And I have to be able to, I have enough time, obviously, now to make tweaks to the system and bring in new plays to feature those guys. And what's wrong with lining up in 11 personnel on first down and running the ball? What's wrong with lining up on first down with 11 personnel and play actioning? What's wrong with lining up on first down with 11 personnel and once in a while throwing the ball? But yeah, you can run the ball. You can run. Look at what Peyton Manning used to do and Brady used to do at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
They didn't it was not a revolving door for personnel. See, the thing about it is, I look at the Niners and they wire out a patch of grass going from the bench to the huddle, the bench to the huddle, the bench to the huddle, and they burn a path. And it's like a revolving door at Nordstrom's or the Whitesdale or the BART station. I mean, it's like new faces are coming in every play. Why are we changing personnel? Why are we substituting? What, to run plays?
Mm-hmm.
But I want to run plays that feature players and get the ball to my playmakers, not just run plays and show you different looks.
Also, from the opponent's perspective, every time they see Jennings running off the field and Juszczyk running on the field, they're like, yes.
Yeah, you're taking away an offensive weapon for a guy who never gets the ball. What, did he get 1 touch last week?
Maybe 6 yards and a penalty.
I wouldn't even blink an eye when I see the guy out there. Oh, okay, don't even cover the guy. He's never going to get the ball. He's never going to run the ball. Is he going to lead me to the ball by being the lead blocker, though? Or what is the scheme of using Juszczyk that might give me a key as to what Kyle's going to run with Juszczyk in the game?
Yeah.
Does he lead me to the football? Now, all of a sudden, your offense is less efficient because Juszczyk is what I call your offensive tell.
Mm.
It's like playing poker. Everybody has a tell, what you do. Well, when Juszczyk comes in the game, what does that tell me defensively?
Interesting. All right, let's turn our attention to the upcoming game this Sunday, Niners and Patriots. Let's find out where BetUS where if you use code YouTube 150, get 150% deposit match on your first deposit, and then 125% deposit match on your second and third. So right now, the Niners are 10.5-point favorites, 10.5 over the Patriots, who are also 1-2. I guess they expect at an over-under of 40.5, the Niners to win 25-15-ish. What do you think of that spread?
Ooh, I tell you, the thing about it is you're talking about 2 touchdowns, because a touchdown and a field goal still puts you under the spread. So that you need a legitimate 2-touchdown advantage, not just a 2-score advantage, because it's the wrong combination of 2 scores. That's not going to be enough to cover the spread. The Niners, I hate to say this, but they should be able to throw the ball with better success against New England than they might be able to run the ball against New England. I think New England might be a little bit better in the box concept than they are on the back end of their defense.
Got it. Makes sense with a head coach like Gerard Mayo. That makes sense. So would you think Patriots would cover this one, or Niners? You think the Niners will?
Well, here's the thing. If I'm Kyle and I notice that, I'm going to throw the ball a little bit more. I'm going to play action pass a little bit more on my quote unquote run downs and invite that defensive front seven to play the run scheme and the run blocking first, trying to bring in players behind the linebackers off the play action and put the ball in that void. And then I'm going to split the defense vertically, and I'm going to run a guy over the top to bait the free safety to find out if he's going to jump my diagonal route crossing, and then I can take the shot over the top. If not, I'm going to throw the ball in the 15 to 18-yard area for a jump gain and let the receiver catch and run, be it a tight end on a crossing route or Debo on a deep opposite route or Ayuk coming across the formation. And I'll run somebody vertical in the seam and attack the safeties, and then run somebody underneath on the second level, and then have a check down underneath that.
Sounds like Tom's already built his game plan for this game, and if he were the Niners passing game coordinator, he'd be putting up a lot of touchdowns this weekend. If you want to place a wager, use the code YouTube 150. Okay, let's get back to our show. Looking ahead, what is the biggest concern against the Patriots this week? Again, Vegas doesn't think there is one. The Niners are 10.5-point favorites, but they're banged up. Javon Hargrave's out. Jordan Elliott, who's the next man up, injured his ankle yesterday in practice, questionable for the game. Patriots run the ball well and seem to stop the run. So what to you is the biggest concern for the Niners in this game?
I would say run defense. Because if I'm New England, my number one goal is I want to limit and restrict the number of touches that Brock Purdy gets. I want to reduce the number of offensive series which the Niners can have, because Kyle can't score if he doesn't have the ball. Okay. And secondly, I know that the Niners have a weakness in run defense. They play that wide 9 scheme. I go back and look at Detroit last year, the first half of the playoff game against the Lions. Oh my God. It was like going down to 280 with no one in, no traffic. I mean, the ball's just going poured right down the middle. I would challenge the Niners with the run game. I've got 2 decent running backs for New England. I have Jacoby Brissett at quarterback, and I'm like, okay, make him a game manager, and I would like to run the ball. I'd like to be at the line of scrimmage using the 40-second play clock, feed the play to Brissett at the line until 15 seconds goes, and then make that defense for the Niners stand out there, and I'm going to run the ball on them and wear them down.
You were talking about that earlier in the show. Use tempo, run the ball, but don't let Chris Kasarik and Nick Sorensen rotate D linemen, because they're already thin there. It's what they like to do, and you can wear them out.
Correct. I want to win the game in the trenches against the Niners. Okay. I don't have great wide. If I'm New England, no disrespect, I can't tell you one of their wide receivers' names. I can't even tell you who the tight end is. You know what I mean? They're unknowns. And I've got, an average guy at quarterback, so I'm not going to be able to wow the Niners with the pass offense. But I can wear them down and run the ball and make it physical on their front four, where the Niners are, as you mentioned, are weak in depth, and some guys are hobbled and still having to play. And you know what? If you make the game physical, and you can wear them down, you can let them know you're in for a long afternoon. How much do you really want to play this game?
So this is an interesting test for the 49ers because it seems like they're not really going to be stressed much in the passing game or the play action game. The quarterback isn't going to throw for a lot of yards. So it's like, stop the run. You got two good running backs. You don't really have to worry about, it's a one-dimensional offense. Stop the run. Can you do that? If they can't do that, this team has huge problems.
Well, here's the thing too, from Sorensen's mindset, what is my 8-in-the-box defense going to look like this week? If you're going to run the football on me, I've got to say, okay, what change up defense or how can I get that extra safety up in the box so I can get 8 in the box? And now I have a guy for every gap, whereas opposed to playing with high secondary guys and disguising coverages and playing cover 4 and cover 2 and all that, which invite the run. Forget it. I'm going to challenge you to pick up the ball and try to throw it to beat me. So I'm going to come down there with an 8th defender. I can play a 3-deep kind of zone. I can play weak side rotation, strong side rotation. I can play single safety man high without playing bump and run. But I want to shut down your run game first. If I'm playing New England, I want to force them to have to throw the football.
Yeah, and can you shut down this run game, which is formidable, with the wide 9 defense? And if you can't, is there another front you can go to, or are you just going to get gouged by alignment?
Correct. That's the key. What kind of a change-up front? Have the Niners ever shown a change-up front from a run defensive perspective thus far? Hell, they didn't do it last year.
I felt like they used a 5-man front at times against the Rams, and it wasn't effective. And that was when Hargrave was healthy, and now he's out, and Elliott's out. And I don't even know if they have the bodies to do a 5-man front.
The thing about it is if I stay at the line of scrimmage and run my game with, from like quote unquote a sugar huddle concept at the line of scrimmage with the ability to snap the ball, you're not going to be able to go to your 5-man front. And I'm going to keep your same 4 on the field.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to eat up clock time. I'm taking the air out of the ball. I'm shortening the game, limiting your touches offensively. And you know what? I don't care if it becomes a field goal fest. If I'm New England, if I win 13-10, if I win 17-13 or 14, hey, I don't need to score 25, 30 points to beat the Niners. I need to keep the Niners offense on the bench and turn it into a defensive, trench warfare where, hey, I don't care if it's a field goal fest.
Yeah. What about on offense? I mean, you mentioned earlier that this could be a play action passing game for the 49ers. The Patriots have a good run defense, but their pass rush, their coverage, not as formidable.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's where my play action pass comes in. I would be very remiss to drop back on first down and just throw the ball from the pocket with Brock, because my run game offers me a tremendous advantage for my play action passing game. Because I can make it so I can run some fire passes where my line comes out aggressively, then snaps back and sets up, and your linebackers are stepping up. You may have a safety biting, so now I have chances to work the ball in behind at the second level of the defense. And so to me, run and play action pass are number 1 and 2, and probably number 3 with a repeat in there on first down for the Niners.
I see. So as long as the Niners can show that they can stop the run, they should be able to win this game because they can move the ball through the air while we don't know one wide receiver's name on New England. Not maybe Demario Douglas. I don't know. I don't know.
I'm glad you had to make that decision, not I.
So if the Niners were to lose this game, which we don't expect they will, how serious is that? 3 losses and you lose to, what's at stake for the 49ers this week? Is this what you call a must-win game in September?
Well, here's the thing. I hate to say that. Look at who's coming up on the schedule after this ball game. Now you look at the next 7, 8 games. You've got a couple. Now think of it not only the West, but you've got, I think, you get Green Bay coming up somewhere down the road. You got Seattle. You got Arizona. You got, I think there's a team called Kansas City. Are they coming up?
I'll read it off. I'll read off the next 7 games. I'll read off the next 7 games here. We got Arizona at home next week, then Seattle on the road Thursday Night Football, then come back Kansas City, Dallas at home, bye week at Tampa, home against Seattle, at Green Bay, at Buffalo. That's a stretch.
That's murderer's row.
Mm-hmm.
That's like pitching against the 27 Yankees. It's a loaded lineup you're facing. There's no soft spot.
Dave wants to know, Tom, would you trade Kyle Shanahan? Raul Davis traded John Gruden.
You know, how many years ago did I mention to you I would swap Kyle out, get some more picks and all that, and, go with somebody else?
What do you think about Ben Johnson as a potential replacement? Ben Johnson over in Detroit.
I like what he's doing. Now, his agent kind of blew up his opportunities last year a little bit because he got a little bit greedy. He made some outlandish public comments that just turned off probably a lot of GMs and owners who were in the job hunt. But, Ben may decide if Detroit doesn't go all the way this year, now would be the time for Ben to move.
What about Bill Belichick?
Okay. Bill would have to change his whole coaching MO to come work there. I tell you what, the way Tom Brady handled Belichick, with respect to how Belichick handled Brady, I don't see Brock Purdy being that guy. See, I don't see Brady had the chip on his shoulder. I'll be damned if that's going to happen. I mean, I would not want to handle Purdy like that at all. I don't think you can do that. I'm not a fan of that kind of coaching.
I see what you mean. Like Belichick's style of coaching was for a different era of player. It was much, yeah.
He coached a lot like Parcells used to coach. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that flies in today's game. I would not want to be coached that way. Oh, my goodness.
It's just a lot of negativity as opposed to guys like Kevin O'Connell and Sean McVay who are just relentlessly positive.
You cannot beat people up and then expect them to have an open mindset and to be positive and be enthusiastic about it. There's a difference between coaching and criticizing. And that's a thin line. A lot of today's players, these young guys making the millions, have had a lot of hot air blown up their skirts since PV football, high school football, college football. They got agents blowing smoke about how great. I had one offensive line coach tell me, when you talk to a player nowadays and you're trying to coach them, they think you're criticizing them because they've never been coached before. So they don't know the difference between, hey, I'm coaching you, I'm not criticizing you. And see, that is the fine line. And you've got to establish that and be able to communicate with the player and say, okay, this was good and all that. Now, look, let's try to do a little bit more of this the next time, and that may help us get a little bit more to where we want. So I'm going to try to coach you up. I'm going to be positive with what I say, and then I'm going to say, okay, now let's look at something else, or let's add a little bit more to this, what you're doing, and kind of cultivate that kind of mentality where they want to listen to me after I gave them something positive about what they did, rather than just jump out, oh my God, you idiot, what the heck were you thinking? Then all of a sudden their hands are over their ears and their minds are closed and your communication's gone.
And what's interesting is Kyle Shanahan's supposed to be a new age coach, but he's very Belichickian. He's very critical. And I think he wore down Jimmy Garoppolo's confidence over time to the point where he has none left. And it'll be interesting to see what happens with Brock Purdy. Daz is a new member. Prapa says we lost to B Team Rams, and some fans are saying save CMC for NFC Championship game. His services won't be needed if the team is watching on the couch. Real quick, not a doctor. You haven't examined Christian McCaffrey, but what is your sense of what's going on here from afar?
I've been around players who've had Achilles tears, Achilles strains, and all that. And this is, I tell you what, I would not be shocked if McCaffrey doesn't come back at all this season. It would not surprise me in the least. In fact, if I'm a coach for the Niners, I don't even have him on my whiteboard. He's over there in another pile where the injured players are, and he doesn't enter into my mind at all in my configuration of future plans. If he shows up, how long is it going to be able to take him to get back into shape? How explosive is he going to be? How healthy mentally is he going to be able to allow himself to try to be explosive without the fear of doing more damage to the Achilles?
Dazza says, if Niners are moving towards more passing and paying Brock Purdy, can we upgrade the center and right tackle position so Brock's not running for his life?
Well, there's a lot to be said that, that's why to me play action is so key, because that helps your offensive line buy some time, because they make the defense have to play the run fake and the run block initially before you recoil and set in the pass set mode. So that now I make the defensive line also have to change gears from a run defense reaction initially, then on the move during the play going on, they have to get into a pass rush mode after playing the run fake. That buys me more time. And hopefully then also the run fake not only slows down the rush, but it might help your right tackle a little bit rather than just dropping him straight back and opening up the floodgates.
Let me ask you this. We know the Niners use a ton of shifts and motions. It's kind of their calling card. It's their signature. And that helps on runs and play action passes. It creates confusion in the defense. On straight drop back passes, whether it's from under center or from the shotgun, does motion help the offense?
Well, I think a lot of it also hinges upon the experience of the quarterback to be able to discern on the move the change the defense is going to make. Now, see, and I'll go back to this. Like in third down situations with motions and shifts like that, Jim Plunkett was a guy who knew where the defense was, and he would kid me when he goes, Tom, now you run motion across the formation. I knew where all those 7 DBs were, but then once you ran the motion across the formation, everybody moved. And then now on the fly, the ball's being snapped. I've got to figure out where the hell are they all now. I want them to line up. I want to identify them. I want to know where they are, see the disguises, see the matchups, and now let's play ball. So now, depending on Brock Purdy's experience, how well is he at reanalyzing what the defense is doing? And as I motion guys across the formation, you're going to have, sometimes you have a corner travel, sometimes you have the secondary squirm, and they bump coverages. Now, can Brock handle all of that and still make a good determination of what's going to happen, anticipate the coverages, and be able to know where to go with the ball? If he cannot, then I won't do that for the kid. I'll play static football and let him analyze it and then play from there.
If I remember correctly, Peyton Manning liked static football for the same reason. And as we know, Peyton Manning was like the de facto offensive coordinator, calling plays, changing protections. Did you give Jim Plunkett that kind of autonomy too? And is that really important for a good drop back passing game?
He had that autonomy. In fact, people don't realize he called his plays.
Wow.
And then we would sub in once in a while and say, okay, on a certain situation, there was a play we wanted to run or a personnel grouping, we'd make a change up. But yeah, see, they know the game better than we as coaches know the game. I hate to say it. They're the guys on the field. They're the ones playing the game. They have the feel of the game. You're on the sideline and you got all these plays that you thought were great all week long, but all of that preparation is great. It's like boxing. You got a plan as a boxer, and he's got a plan as a boxer. Now, after he hit you in the mouth the first time, how good is your plan, and what is your answer to that attack that he just laid on you? All of a sudden, that game plan could be out the window.
Coaches are such control freaks these days. Like 40 years ago, they were more than willing to let the quarterback take ownership of the offense and make decisions and call plays. And now it's like out of the freaking question. And it seems like if your quarterback is Jimmy Garoppolo, I might understand making decisions for him and calling plays. But if you really think your guy is great, like the Niners seem to think Brock Purdy is, like, don't you want to empower him and put more on his plate mentally?
Okay, now here's a curveball I'm going to throw you. What would a Jimmy Garoppolo have been like if I let him call his own plays? If I have you take ownership and you have a vested interest in what you're doing, how is that going to impact your success as opposed to you being a joystick quarterback?
Right, because
until I give you that option, I can't make that determination.
Because by the end, he would miss a throw, turn to Kyle, make a face. He even said your plays freaking suck, man. So if he's completely uninvested from the offense, then what do you expect to happen? Anytime anything bad happens, he's going to point to Kyle, and Kyle's going to point to him, and that's a problem.
Yeah, I let you call the plays and say, okay, here, and we can practice it all week, and you've got your list of plays. We talk about it in the quarterback meetings. We talk about it in practice. We have no huddle. We have whatever, and say, okay, I can send you a play when you need something, but here's our
4 or 5 first down runs and play action passes. Here's our first couple dropbacks if you want to number your plays from 1 to whatever. Here's your menu. Go execute it. If you need help, hey, let me know. If you got it and we're moving the ball, I'm going to let you take it. You're driving the car.
Well, look, we're coming to the end of Ask Tom Walsh, presented by BetUS. But before we end, I want to just remind viewers, Kyle Shanahan, if he's watching, Kyle, Tom has challenged you to play your best 11 players on offense. Nothing against Kyle Juszczyk. He's getting old. He's no longer one of your best 11 players. You have 3 special wide receivers. Tom has challenged you to find a way, use your creativity, which we all know you have, get them on the field together a lot. Because when you don't, the opponent is thanking you. Tom, thank you very much for coming on the show.
I appreciate it, Grant. You know, the one thing, hey, I want them to be successful, you know.
Me too.
Let the players play.
This is just a little pro bono quality control. Kyle, you're welcome. Tom, thank you very much.
Okay, great. Have a good day, Grant.
Take care, everyone.